a CRN original.
Attention, you are about to hear the captivating voice of an icon in the movie industry. You have heard him and seen him in performances in over 140 films. He's met and influenced many world leaders, and now he's about to tell you how to unite the America he loves.
That job's filled.
Unique.
Brilliant. And unpredictable. Robert Davi is a Renaissance man who writes, directs, sings, and does it all with excellence.
Yes, okay, we're all very impressed, but let's get on with it now.
Robert Davi believes he should use his voice to both repay and help unite America, the America that made his dreams come true.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Robert Davi Show.
Welcome to The Robert Davi Show. It is the trick-or-treat season, and today you get the trick. I'm Thaddeus McCotter, former member of Congress and recovering politician, filling in for Robert. Robert is away working on a special project, which he hopes to present to audiences in the near future. We wish him well and safe travels to him. Today, on The Robert Davi Show, we have a special guest, Lisa De Pasquale. She's a writer, a co-host of the Political Punks podcast, a founder and Monday editor of the Bright newsletter. Lisa's written for numerous publications, including Town Hall, The Federalist, and others. Got to get you on American Greatness one day. And also, she's the author of several books. How are you, Lisa?
Hey there, doing well.
I saw on Twitter you're on vacation. I appreciate this great sacrifice you're making talking into a telephone.
I know. Well, it's raining, so it's not too bad. I needed something to do.
Well, I'm surprised you're not writing a book. Why don't you tell us about your recent book, the
I'm
highly
writing 2 books,
perspicacious.
If you must know.
You're writing. You got 2 hands. So,
I know, right? I'm working on 2 different books. But too early to tell on those. But the other ones are pretty fun.
Well, I want to talk about the very perspicacious Social Justice Warrior Handbook. Can you tell us about that? Because obviously you wrote this well before woke was all the rage amongst the progressives.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is I wrote it as a parody book, and now it's a history book. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of modeled after, our generation and maybe slightly older. The Yuppie Handbook? That doesn't sound right. The Preppy Handbook?
The Preppy Handbook.
So, yeah, Preppy Handbook. So it made fun of 80s preps, but it was sort of good-humored in that people could look at it and say, yeah, that is, kind of us. And that's kind of the tone that I took in the SJW handbook. I mean, even though I obviously have nothing but disdain for these people, it is more a light jab and more good-humored, I think, than they deserve. And part of that is because I think no matter what side you're on, you can look at what has become a truth for a lot of these people and laugh at it. And it's more of a gentle touch than, say, someone smarter than me like you or Ben Shapiro going after the SJWs.
Well, clearly, none of us are as smart as Ben Shapiro. But when you look at it, Lisa, you were trying to be humorous with people who are essentially humorless. Because there's nothing less humorous than someone who runs around claiming they're woke and morally superior to the rest of us. They're basically shrews and shrills. And the problem that we run into then is how do you even begin to make them aware of the fact that they're annoying?
Yeah. Well, I can't remember who it was. There's a comedian. It might have even been a non-comedian like Gutfeld, someone that we know, who basically said, when it comes to comedy, and this is, especially we're seeing over the last week, with the Dave Chappelle special, is you can control people's words, you can, do what you can to control their behavior, but it's really hard to control laughter. And, even if it's, the vast majority of people that are basically non-political or being forced to be political, I think they can look at a lot of what's going on now, and especially with the left doubling down on some of the crazy things. They can't control, the laughter, when Dave Chappelle talks about, transphobia and that sort of thing, versus, these woke scolds that want to be, 100% serious all the time, and it just makes them look even more ridiculous.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. One of the problems that you run into is Katja Sedgwick was a guest that we had on last week on the Robert Davi show, and here we are talking with Lisa De Pasquale, and she had mentioned that this reminds her in some ways, and I've talked to her about it, of the Brezhnev era, the stagnation of the Soviet Union, the humorlessness, the absolute aimlessness, and just the rigid ideological manifestation of basically stifling boredom that comes with these types of individuals and comes with their ideology. Because in the end, Lisa, basically what they are is they are a destructive, malevolent force that basically stagnates everything around it because they never produced anything to take its place. I mean, these are the people who tell us that humor no longer has to be funny and almost has a responsibility not to be so that it doesn't offend anybody. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, you can see that in the late night shows. I mean, and, the whole mantra that once you go woke, you go broke. I mean, in this case, it's their ratings. And it's like what about this clapter, I think, is like what Bill Maher calls it. And that's like when you're not getting laughs, but people are clapping because they agree with, the political sentiment that the late night hosts are making. Like, there are no jokes.
Or do they even agree, or do they clap because they think they're supposed to?
It's probably both. I mean, because a lot of it is, touristy things, to the extent that people still go to LA if any of the, like, whatever shows are done in front of audiences in LA. I think it's people that do, a Universal Studios lot tour, and get bussed in as the audience, and they, like, probably half of them clap because they're supposed to, and half of them, or maybe even less than half, clap because it's a way to fill the silence instead of forcing a laugh. Or, they might have the applause signs, and they just do what they're told.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that these days. We're talking with Lisa De Pasquale. We're talking about her book, The Social Justice Warrior Handbook. Lisa, you not only talked about some of the more irksome aspects of the woke movement, but you've also talked about the industry they've created. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. I mean, the whole, like, cancel culture, I mean, I kind of saw it when I was writing the book. It was right around the time when people were going after Breitbart.com for whatever ad, service they use. And basically what happens is a company will decide to do digital ads with like Google Ads or some other service, third-party service that, like, services their ads and, sends them to different websites, just like how you see the same ads, like, follow you from place to place. And people started when I say people, I guess I mean more like person, noticed, oh, this company is advertising on Breitbart, when it's not, this company writing a check to Breitbart. And so then the New York Times sees, like, this one random person's tweet. They write an article saying people are starting to boycott, X because they're advertising on Breitbart. And basically the New York Times, like, lays out the case to how to get this done, how to get someone banned, how to cancel someone, how to remove their income based on a handful of tweets by people with a handful of followers, if any. And what's more annoying than the New York Times is that companies, like, bow down to this so quickly when it's just like a handful of people. And on top of that, a handful of people on Twitter, which doesn't even represent probably most of their consumers.
But it's really the press.
And they make it out to be like some organic movement when really it's the New York Times amplifying a couple people on Twitter.
That's the jackbooted monster in the whole thing is the press, because the press is the one they're afraid of. They're not afraid of the guys on Twitter or a handful of people like that particularly. They're afraid of the press continuing this campaign of calumny against them. Because in the end, I mean, what you're seeing is an entire generation, an entire movement that is afraid of discourse, that is afraid of debate, that is censorious. And in the final analysis, they cannot defend their propositions. And they've never been trained to. So what they do is their first response is not to have a cerebral engagement with you, but is to become an emotional and visceral reaction that somehow you're denigrating their person by opposing any of their ideas or ideals. And that's the problem. You cannot debate with them, and they make no bones about it in the way they behave.
Yeah, I mean, the behavior of both sides is, you know, completely opposite. I mean, they want to shut speeches, people, events, everything down. Whereas, you know, we have, you know, people like Steven Crowder and others that will do the thing where, you know, you go to a college campus and basically put a microphone in someone's face. It's like we're trying to amplify them because we don't even think we need to debate. We just want to be like, listen to this, give this person a microphone and decide for yourself. Whereas they just want to, you know, shut it down. And, you know, even at events on the right, I mean, we still have debate. I mean, when I was the director of CPAC for several years, I always remember, like, the biggest debates we always had were between the, like, flat tax people and the, you know, value-added tax people. You know, we even want to fight.
We'll have to return. I'm sorry to interrupt, Lisa. We're up against a hard break. We'll come back with Lisa De Pasquale. We're talking about her book, Social Justice Warriors, a Handbook, and we'll be back after we hear from our sponsors.
Have you heard about Vine to Bar chocolate? It's the winemaker's chocolate, the world's first chocolate made with well-vined Chardonnay marc from the beautiful coastal vineyards of North America. Gently pressed grapes are harvested after juicing, dried and finely milled and carefully blended into the finest dark chocolate. The Chardonnay marc contains highly beneficial grape nutrients, flavonols, and has a natural sweetness that flavors the luscious dark chocolate. Mouth-watering, flavorful, delectable dark chocolate goodness with Chardonnay sweetness and beneficial nutrients. And it's alcohol-free, too. It's Vine to Bar chocolate. Order some today at vinetobar.com. That's VINETOBAR.com. Cold shipped to your door, it's Vine to Bar. Vine to Bar chocolate. Visit us at vinetobar.com.
Hi, my name is Lily. My mom and dad used to fight about money all the time. Then one day, I heard them talking about this guy, some uncle I never knew, called Uncle Sam. Well, they say this Uncle Sam guy wanted them to pay him like $1 gazillion, and they didn't have $1 gazillion. So they called this company they heard on the radio called the Tax Doctor. And the Tax Doctor worked with Uncle Sam's people. I think they're called the IRS. And they were able to work it out so my mom and dad didn't have to pay Uncle Sam very much money at all. So now mom and dad are happy, and I'm happy too. Thanks, Tax Doctor.
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS or state, call now and pay less. 800-391-8713. 800-391-8713. That's 800-391-8713.
For the getaway of your dreams, come to Hawaii's Playground, Ka'anapali Beach Resort, on the fun side of Maui, where the world comes to play. Find your spot on Ka'anapali Beach with 3 miles of white sand, 12 resort properties, 2 golf courses, and 2 shopping centers. Enjoy the playground of Hawaii's ancient royalty. Ka'anapali Beach Resort is Hawaii's original master planned destination resort and home of the Hawaii Food and Wine Festival. With views of 2 neighboring islands, you can breathe in the land's natural beauty from your favorite resort or golf fairway. Come experience Ka'anapali's own special brand of Hawaiian hospitality with world-class dining, relaxing resorts, water sports, and activities of every kind. For romantic, family, and great friend getaways, discover the options of Ka'anapali Beach Resort, where the world comes to play. Plan your getaway today. Visit Ka'anapaliResort.com. That's KAANAPALI Resort.com.
Robert Davi.
You know, I'm the one delivering the message, not receiving it.
Hi, welcome back to the Robert Davi Show. I'm guest host Thaddeus McCotter, filling in for Robert, who's away working on a project that he hopes to bring to audiences shortly. Our guest today is Lisa De Pasquale, a founding member of the newsletter Bright. I encourage you all to get it. She's also the Monday editor of it. She's written for numerous publications. She's appeared on Fox Business and Fox News frequently. And, of course, we're talking about her book, The Social Justice Warrior, a Handbook. Lisa, when we left, we were talking about how sometimes the students, the kids that we today that are woke, don't understand how to defend their propositions, aren't trained to do so. And in fact, in many ways, it's the goal of the universities to see that they can't, that they just rotely follow along with the groupthink. Now, you've talked about how campuses, how many faculty and how many resources, especially in universities as well as the private sector, are devoted to continuing to further this ideology. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they are getting even more, they're buckling down even more now because, you know, when I was in school and then like early 2000s when I was, you know, helping conservative students bring conservative and libertarian speakers to their college campuses, you know, the internet and all of and social media platforms and everything else wasn't around. And, you know, that they were sort of at the mercy of the administration. I mean, if the administration did a last minute room change, I mean, that could totally cancel an event. I mean, with no one being there. And now with social media and, you know, other avenues of kids being able to, you know, hear different ideas, I think that the college administrators and professors are doubling down. And on top of that, they have known something that we have not paid attention to, and that's that you have to start even earlier than college. By college, it's too late for a lot of kids because, you know, they've been getting this stuff since, you know, in some cases, elementary school, definitely by middle school. You know, the whole different worldview and, you know, whether or not you celebrate Columbus Day or Indigenous People Day. I mean, that's already baked in. And I think that's one thing that the right really, you know, needs to get in on. And, you know, we haven't done it yet, but I think on the positive side, I mean, the critical race theory is at least making parents learn more about what their kids are actually learning.
Yeah, I think it's a shock to conservatives. I think it's a shock to basically independents, normal people, that educators, a lot of them believe that their job is not to educate, but it is to indoctrinate. And you saw Terry McAuliffe out running for governor of Virginia saying that he wants, you know, parents should have less control over their children's education. I mean, that is so backwards and so insane to think that it's coming from someone who's running for governor of Virginia. Now, Lisa, on these campuses, too, it's not just the teachers. You have entire staffs dedicated to driving this agenda, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the administrators, when I say administrators and the administration, I mean, that's, you know, all of these different centers. I mean, you don't have to be a professor or someone with a doctorate. Maybe, you know, maybe you have like a master's and like some niche thing, but, you know, these are things that are making, you know, campus policy, whether it's, you know, this room can only have this type of people or this center is just for this type of people and, you know, gets this government grant, you know, to do some, you know, diversity and inclusion thing that basically does everything but include everybody. And, you know, these are the people running the campus because in large part they're the political folks and the organizers. And, you know, they have to be hidden because a lot of these donors to college universities and endowments, I mean, they are not down with all of this crazy lefty stuff. And a lot of times if you go to a college website, I mean, you really have to hunt for some of the crazy stuff that they're doing because they do not want alumni and endowment folks to see this. And these are the people running, you know, the campus and campus life.
Yeah, and of course, because essentially the donors to these colleges and universities are subsidizing this behavior, as are taxpayers in the public universities. And increasingly we're seeing within K-12 education too in the public schools. So when you look at this overall, you're starting to see that they have rigged the system to indoctrinate children, and in many ways hide it from their parents and hide it from the donors, and in short, hide it from anybody. One of the few things that came out of the pandemic was parents were able to see much of what was being taught to their children, and they did not like it. And you find people like Chris Rufo and others that have started the argument against critical race theory and other aspects of the DIE cult, which is what I call them, the diversity, inclusion, and equity cult that they have out there. So, Lisa, when you wrote the book, what was the initial reaction to it? Did you find conservatives thought maybe you were going a little too far, that maybe it wasn't as bad as it was, or not?
I mean, I think most conservatives, at least, the ones that said something to me, liked it. There were a couple people that, just love to be, contrarians. There were, I think largely it was well received. It's funny because some things that I sort of made up to be ridiculous have come into fruition. But I think like what's most interesting, and in a way, I almost feel bad, is when I look at like the book scan numbers and I look at places where the book is sold the best. It's Seattle, D.C., New York, L.A., and I think people are accidentally buying it. And that's fine with me, as long as they don't return it.
This is the Robert Davi Show. I'm guest host Thaddeus McCotter. We're talking to Lisa De Pasquale, frequent contributor to numerous publications, as well as a frequent guest on Fox News and Fox Business. We're talking about her book, The Social Justice Warrior, a Handbook. Now, Lisa, when you wrote a book like this, obviously you go around, you talk about it, and you get responses like you just mentioned. Then you've also worked in the fiction realm as well, which I would like to get to and to talk about the entertainment industry. But before we leave the issue of the social justice warrior, what are some basic elementary things people should be able to do to fight back against this?
I think that you have to be willing to stand your ground, but, with a smile. Like one thing that I've found in the pandemic, especially in talking to, more service people that are, basically living by different rules than the people that they're serving. I mean, you can see that when any, Hollywood celeb or politician has an event. You find out a lot from these people because these are the people that are still willing to work right now, and you have to be on their side and do so with a smile, because we're the ones that need to play the happy warrior. They're the ones that are angry and are the scolds that they always made the religious right to be.
They're uncool stiffs. I appreciate that. And we're not. Lisa De Pasquale here on the Robert Davi Show. We will be back after these messages to talk about her fiction book, I Wish I Might, and the entertainment industry as a whole, and how our politics infecting it. We'll be back.
I'm Al Simon, 91 years young. I created Balance 7 20 years ago. At 67, I went to see the doctor for the first time in my life and found that I had medical problems. He told me that was normal for my age. I don't believe God intended us to be sick and old. I decided to find something to bring my health back. For 10 years, I studied pH and how important it is to the human system. Balance 7 gave me back what I lost by getting older. I no longer get out of bed with a joint discomfort. Balance 7 can do for you what it has done for me and many others. In 3 days' time, you'll feel more energy, less joint discomfort, and clarity of thinking. No doctor or hospital can do what Balance 7 can do for you. Balance 7 is the key to unlocking the healthy immune system. Bring your body back to balance. Order now. Receive free shipping with the code word AL. Go to balance7.com. That's balance7.com. Order now and get your free shipping and a free gift with your order. Go to balance7.com. Use the code word AL.
Do you want to fly somewhere, anywhere in the world? Smart travelers call myflightsearch.com for the best deals on flight tickets. Going to Manila, Bangkok, London, how about Singapore? Call myflightsearch.com for the lowest flight tickets available. What about a local vacation? Let's say you want to fly to Vegas, Orlando, Miami, Los Angeles, or Denver. Pick up the phone and call myflightsearch.com right now. We have exclusive deals that you can't find anywhere else. The only way you can get these low airline prices is by calling us. We have so many low prices available, we can't possibly tell them to you right here and now. If you're flying somewhere anytime in the next 6 months and you want the lowest airline ticket prices anywhere, you owe it to yourself to save a ton of money. So pick up your cell phone and call myflightsearch.com right now.
Call 800-445-3166. 800-445-3166. That's 800-445-3166. Call now. 800-445-3166.
If you have ever thought about remodeling your bathroom but were worried it would take too long or cost too much, then stop worrying. Right now, Jacuzzi Bath Remodel has designed a collection of high-quality, custom products and perfected the one-day remodeling experience so you could enjoy your new bathroom faster than ever before. It's a worry-free bath remodel from the most trusted name brand in the business, Jacuzzi. A jacuzzi bath system fits in your existing tub space. It's a no-mess installation with an amazing style selection, factory-certified installers, and a limited lifetime warranty. Just dial pound 250 on your mobile device right now and say the keyword update for 50% off installations with no interest and no payments for 12 months. Replace that old bathtub with a walk-in shower for a safer bathing experience. If you've lived in your home for over 15 years, it's time to remodel your bathroom. For a virtual or in-home appointment, dial pound 250 now and say the keyword update. That's pound 250 and say the keyword update.
If Ernest Hemingway was alive today, would he say this to you?
Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe, all great writers. And after reading your book, I simply must add you to the list.
Wait, you don't have a book yet. So make a free call to Page Publishing. Their expert staff can help you turn your book idea into a real book, a masterpiece that could someday make the bestseller list in hard copy and digitally all across the world. Page Publishing can help you completely take your idea for a book, write it, and publish it. So if you want to join the ranks of some of the most famous authors in the world, call now for a free information kit. Turn your book idea into publishing gold. Make a free call right now to Page Publishing.
800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. That's 800-378-3212.
The Robert Davi Show.
I'm Dwayne Robinson, LAPD. I'm in charge here. Not anymore.
Welcome back to the Robert Davi Show. I'm your guest host, Thaddeus McCotter. With us today is Lisa De Pasquale, a co-host of the Political Punks podcast, a frequent guest on Fox News and Fox Business. She is also a frequent contributor to numerous conservative publications and an author. Now, Lisa, we promised in our last segment that we were going to talk about your fiction work. What can you tell us?
Sure. Well, I'm really looking forward to your Thursday guest because I think you'll get into more of like fiction and pop culture and culture when it comes to boys and young men. But for me, obviously, with wanting to do a chick lit type of book, women's literature, and then also with Bright, is I think that there's like a real need for entertainment for women that's not coming from, the teen Vogue feminist point of view. And so I wanted to write a fiction book, the type of books that I like to read, especially when I'm, here at the beach, that don't necessarily assume that the reader is a Hillary supporter or pro-abortion or anything like that, but, keeps the fun stuff and isn't political. Talks about fashion, talks about media. I mean, there's kind of like three jobs, in the rom-com world for a woman. It's, PR or a magazine or event planner. And I've done all three of those things. So it was enjoyable to write this fiction book, and it actually ended up getting picked up by, one of these women's fiction subscription services, and I didn't know any of the writers, any of the subscribers and the people that, received the book. And the biggest compliment that I got from some of them that reached out to me on Instagram was, I liked that this book was not political. And just by virtue of not being lefty, we can reach, more people in a different kind of way.
Well, I think you're absolutely on to something, several things, but one is obviously people really do not like politics right now. And so the left being inherently political, it's all they think about. The fact that you went and wrote a book that was non-political is something basically somebody on our side can only do.
Well, and the thing about it, especially with politics right now, is I think Jesse Kelly is one that brought it up, is, there's people that are like, why are they getting into sports and, the national anthem? And then why are they getting into comedy? And why are they getting into that? It's like they attack these things because you love them, because that's all that you have left. And that's where I think that we need to have a lighter touch when it comes to, entertainment, because there's some people that aren't necessarily going to be turned off because we're right or left, but because we're, hitting home a political message. And, it's okay to be subtle. We just need the people with the money to understand that this is, something worth investing in. I mean, 20 years ago, we had to convince people to get, conservatives with money that wanted to donate. We had to convince them to get involved in college campuses and not just fund white papers. Well, we've made some progress, but now college is too late. We need to get people involved in the entertainment that actually entertains and not just preaches. And we need to get people involved in, earlier education that's not political. That's, here are some American heroes. Here's some, actual history. Good things happen, bad things happen. Here are the good people that help stop some of the bad things.
See, I think you're right. I would disagree with Jesse Kelly on this. It has nothing to do with us to a certain extent. It has everything to do with them, and we're collateral damage. Mm-hmm. They believe politics is everything. Politics is life, and they're going to impose their will on everybody else and tell everybody else how to live. They're just annoying, irksome individuals, and we're collateral damage so they can prove their moral superiority. They're incredibly obnoxious. And when you write an apolitical book, as you did, people respond to it because they're tired of being preached at. They're tired of being told how to live. And, could you imagine a conservative writing a fiction book? Yes, I'm going to talk about, the protagonist is going to talk to the arch villain about Hayek versus Ropke. And they're going to have a long dissertation on the bridge before they jump off,
Yeah, well,
I mean, only a leftist could think
Ayn Rand, but it's hard to get through some of those.
Not everybody. Not everybody.
But as I'm saying, it's kind of like, on one hand, it started with, not started, but, there is a movement that started with fiction, but it's such a heavy read for anyone that's not a fan of that to begin with,
Well, I think you win just by being normal.
Yeah, exactly.
That's generally
low at this point.
When you think of the greatest president of my lifetime was Ronald Reagan. I mean, I'm Gen X, so that makes sense. But when you look at it, they asked him, "What do you like to do in the morning?" Reagan said, "I first thing I do is I open up and read the comics." And Russell Kirk, the conservative, the one who helped shape conservative philosophies in the mid 20th century, he said, "Well, who doesn't do that? Normal people open it up, read the comics, read the sports page. They don't open it up and see what the New York Times is talking about. No, the editorial page. No, that's politicians. Normal people don't do that." And Reagan was a great communicator because he was a normal person who understood how normal people think. And I think go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and I think that's important because a lot of times conservatives will sort of take up these small wins, oh, we got this. Let's go Brandon to trend on Twitter. And it's that's great, but no one else knows that. Normal people don't wake up and get on Twitter in the morning.
Yeah, it was very strange when I was out in the swamp, is the fact that I didn't think like the swamp. And so when you think like a normal person and you see these individuals and they think, like you said, like, let's go, Brand, it's like, there's a lot of things that normal people who have to work every single day, pick up the kids, they've got to, they got to do a million different things, that when those types of things happen, they don't have time to sit there and think what's trending on Twitter, on political Twitter or things like that. They got more important things to do. And I think that one of the issues that we have is that we don't engage the culture, because to a certain extent, our hyper-political people don't understand the need to engage the culture. They'd rather stay in the political realm because they're so alien to the thought of how normal people think themselves.
Well, that, and I mean, this from the swamp, that it's sort of built that, particularly for consultants and for politicians, you kind of win either way, whether you do what you say you're going to do or not. Because if you do what you say you're going to do, then you get to stay there and keep raising money. If you don't do what you promised you would do, then you blame it on someone else. You get to stay there and continue to raise money. Just like the consultants, it doesn't matter if their candidate wins or loses. It's always the candidate that's the problem. And I think the same for, some of the conservative groups that raise money on an issue. I mean, it's almost to their benefit to never have a victory, because then the money stops.
I'd like to think of the swamp as Washington, D.C. as high school without the hope. Because in high school, no matter how bad of a person you are, there's a chance you might get better over time. By the time you wind up in Washington, you're going to be the jackanapes you're going to be. It's not going to get any better for you.
Well, I'm looking.
And unfortunately, you have the power to make everybody else miserable for a long period of time.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to leaving after 20-some years. It'll be interesting to get back to real America, especially if Terry McAuliffe ends up winning Virginia.
And we're going to be back with Lisa De Pasquale for our final segment to find out what kind of plan she has in store for herself here at the Robert Davi Show. We'll be back.
Have you heard about Vine to Bar chocolate? It's the winemaker's chocolate, the world's first chocolate made with well-vined Chardonnay marc from the beautiful coastal vineyards of North America. Gently pressed grapes are harvested after juicing, dried and finely milled and carefully blended into the finest dark chocolate. The Chardonnay marc contains highly beneficial grape nutrients, flavanols, and has a natural sweetness that flavors the luscious dark chocolate. Mouth-watering, flavorful, delectable dark chocolate goodness with Chardonnay sweetness and beneficial nutrients. And it's alcohol-free, too. It's Vine to Bar chocolate. Order some today at vinetobar.com. That's VINETOBAR.com. Cold shipped to your door, it's Vine to Bar. Vine to Bar chocolate. Visit us at vinetobar.com.
Do you want to fly somewhere, anywhere in the world? Smart travelers call myflightsearch.com for the best deals on flight tickets. Going to Manila, Bangkok, London, how about Singapore? Call myflightsearch.com for the lowest flight tickets available. What about a local vacation? Let's say you want to fly to Vegas, Orlando, Miami, Los Angeles, or Denver. Pick up the phone and call myflightsearch.com right now. We have exclusive deals that you can't find anywhere else. The only way you can get these low airline prices is by calling us. We have so many low prices available, we can't possibly tell them to you right here and now. If you're flying somewhere anytime in the next 6 months and you want the lowest airline ticket prices anywhere, you owe it to yourself to save a ton of money. So pick up your cell phone and call Call myflightsearch.com right now.
Call 800-445-3166. 800-445-3166. That's 800-445-3166. Call now. 800-445-3166.
When you really want Italian food, you have got to get to Columbo's. Columbo's Italian Steakhouse and Jazz Club. Colorado Boulevard, Eagle Rock. It's that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Today, it seems so hard to enjoy just a little bit of easy. So much of life seems to get in the way. But fear not, seekers of fabulous food and fun and thrill. Columbo's is Southern California's answer to Easy Street. Great grub with some of the finest steaks, the freshest fish awaiting for you to devour. Did I mention Columbo's family Italian recipes? Columbo's spaghetti bolognese, their chicken pesto ravioli, magnifico, and of course, the world's greatest meatballs. I can go on. But why go on when you can go on over to Columbo's and experience delicious and easy for yourself? Columbo's, of course, that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Columbo's, mangia bene.
Robert Davi.
Another $80 million write-off.
I guess it's time to start turning overhead.
Welcome back to the Robert Davi Show. I'm your guest host, Thaddeus McCotter, former member of Congress and recovering politician, and I cannot be blamed for what's happening now. With us is Lisa De Pasquale, a co-host of the Political Punks podcast, the founder and Monday editor of the Bright newsletter. I urge everyone to subscribe to that. She's also a frequent guest of Fox News and Fox Business, and a contributor to numerous conservative publications, as well as an author of a book, Social Justice Warrior, a handbook, and I Wish I Might, a fiction book, a rom-com, I think as you called it. Now, Lisa, What have you got? What have you got in store? You said you talked about moving out of the swamp.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking a page out of the Move to a Red State and Make It Redder handbook. I am hoping to move to Texas next year. I'm originally from Florida, so while I want, I kind of don't trust Florida to continue to be red. I don't think you can count on it. I think Texas you can count on a little longer. But I was watching a podcast that my Political Punks co-host Brett Smith did. I'm blanking on the name, but the last name is Ross, I think. But basically, when you move to a state, they effectively become your business partner. And right now, there are lots of states that are not good business partners, especially if you're in, California, where they can just shut down your business, based on mandates and things like that, and pick and choose winners, whereas, a church has to be closed, but the liquor stores stay open. And I want to move to a state that's going to be a good business partner because, D.C. and Virginia, haven't been. And, I think that's the only way that maybe some of these states will turn it around, because most of them are still controlled by Republican legislatures, but they're not doing anything. They're just letting, other people make decisions.
Well, I think you're starting to see that, but I'm more sanguine about the future. I think that what we really needed to see, and the country really needed to see, was the progressives at work and the type of dystopian future.
I'm definitely with you on being more hopeful, even though we're kind of like in this time sucks period. But I'm more hopeful about Gen Z because they have a lot more information. They're seeing like how even jokes can be controlled. I think that the COVID situation has really showed the left for what they are, and just like power hungry and, willing to let grandma die while the governor, parties it up. I think a lot of people are finally able to see, what the left stands for, and that's to control every aspect of your life.
Yeah, the Gen Z and even some of the millennials, they tend to be rather entrepreneurial when you take the politics out of the proposition. out of the policy, and they just look at the policy on their face, they tend to be entrepreneurial, they tend to be energetic, they like to be nice, they aren't people who take well to someone telling them what to do. I mean, I remember back in the day, early on, groups of kids, high school kids, college kids, I'd say, would you let the government program your iPod? They'd say no. And I'd say, well, then why would you let the government choose your doctor?
Mm-hmm.
And they never looked at it that way.
I think that the turnaround is happening because, they, like in the past, you could, make the case that the left supported freedom and, being who you are. They might have at least had that on you, especially when it came to cultural issues. Now it's the opposite. They see, or they're making it clear that it's the right that wants to live and let be. We're not trying to tell you who to marry, who to share anything with. We just want to be left alone. And now the left is the opposite.
Think about it, Lisa.
Or it's not even not the opposite, but it's more apparent to the average person that's what they stand for is controlling people.
Well, you're an author. I mean, historically, people talk about the right is the one who wants to censor everything. The right is the one who wants to tell you how to live. The reality is that's not really the case. When you look at it, the left is the one censoring books. They're taking books out of libraries. They're the ones who are getting cancel culture on comedians and everybody else. They're the reason people are afraid to publicly state a political opinion. It's not the right. The left is the reason in this country people are afraid to exercise their God-given constitutional rights, which government is supposed to protect. And instead, the left and their cronies in places like California or the Biden maladministration are busy not protecting your rights, but are instead trampling upon them every day. And we can ask Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, how it feels to try to throw parents in jail as domestic terrorists for trying to fight school boards. I mean, this is the left, and kids need to see this.
Yeah, and I think before, they might have said, oh, well, they just want to, take someone like Tucker off the air or punish this, famous conservative. But now, I mean, they're literally going after private citizens for having, different think. And I think that's how they're really showing themselves, and the mask has come off, and your average American who may not have been interested in politics is starting to pay attention.
Well, in short, they're trying to turn the United States into a radical left-wing college campus run by the same types of lunatics that run those institutions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
to me,
they turned the entire country, into that. I mean, it's been a while. It's at least been 10 years where, most comedians acknowledge they don't do campus tours anymore. There's too much that can't be said, so they don't even bother. And that's what I think is so interesting about the pandemic is it was sort of the comedians that were leading the way because they, the working ones really did need to, travel and go from place to place. And they're the ones that are like, let's open. And, now there are comedians and people like Eric Clapton that are saying, we don't want to play anywhere where, there are mandates and there's discrimination against groups of people.
What's amazing is that the universities, when you think about it, for baby boomers and Gen X, the universities were hotbeds of humor. That's where National Lampoon came out of. That's where those Second City, those people came out of the colleges, and their audiences were there. They went and they toured there. George Carlin played to college campuses. That's the Smothers Brothers even. That's where humor was hip. That's where you went to go find it. The question was how you could mainstream it. And now the mainstream is destroying it. And it's the left that is destroying humor in the United States because if no one can get offended, the comedian becomes enemy number one who must be censored.
Yeah, and you're seeing, the fact that they would go after Dave Chappelle, it's just, amazing that there's absolutely no reason that your average American can't see them for what they are now. So it kind of begs the question, if Republicans continue to lose at the national level or any level, at some point they only have themselves to blame.
Yeah, and it's a question of crafting the message to a certain extent. when you look at it, President Trump was such an individual that there was no ambivalence about it. You either loved him or hated him. It basically turned out that way. And so with him no longer being president, the left had a little bit of a grace period, and it's amazing how quickly that's gone away.
Mm-hmm.
That they have mismanaged so much and overplayed their hands so much, and in short, and basically the Biden, again, the maladministration, that the American people have caught on so quickly to the fact the left is not going to be beneficial to forging a more perfect union or the advancement of anybody's pursuit of happiness. And that happened so quickly. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really surprising because, I mean, in their effort to make everything political, they've now made people who weren't interested, interested in paying attention. And, I think that's why you see Biden's numbers drop so bad, because there's always sort of like this group of, 10 to 15% of the people that will generally be positive about whoever the president is. Oh, yes, I think he's doing a good job on this. That's like wiped out. Those people are now on the negative side, and it's like the diehard, any Democrat can do no wrong, are what's left in the approve column. And I mean, I guess we'll see what Trump does. But I mean, at the very least, in 2022, I think the first goal is, getting rid of Pelosi and at least getting rid of some of that leadership. Because if they can't make a turn in the rest of the states, then, I definitely don't see anything happening in 24.
Yes, I call it the triage election. It's a battlefield triage.
Yeah.
You've just got to get a majority, and you've got to get it in one or both places so that you can stop the bleeding and put the country on the right track again. This is the Robert Davi Show. I'm Thaddeus McCotter. I've been honored to guest host for Robert, who's away. We've been talking with Lisa De Pasquale, the founder and Monday editor of the Bright newsletter, the co-host of the Political Punks podcast, a frequent contributor to numerous conservative publications, and a frequent guest on Fox News and Business. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for listening.
But especially the people. Yes, especially the people. That's America to me.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it, you could junk it, or you could donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-785-9618. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It will be towed away.